Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It is Friday morning. And if it's Friday, we're in love. It's 7:07 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for joining us on a busy, busy day. Coming up in 30 minutes, Trevor Matich will do the post-mortem on yesterday's embarrassment against the hapless, horrific, once unvictorious. What's the opposite of undefeated?
Defeated?
Defeated. Totally defeated Chicago Bears, who now have one victory against our Commanders. What's going on?
Yeah.
Trevor Matich will unpack it for us coming up in 30 minutes. That's Patrice Onwuka.
Happy Friday, folks.
Gracing us with her lovely presence today.
That's so sweet.
And joining us right now is retired Brigadier General John Dragon Teichert. He wants to be the next senator from the state of Maryland, the seat vacated by Ben Cardin. General, thanks for joining us.
Larry and Patrice, thanks for having me.
Obviously, question number one, where did Dragon come from?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. As a fighter pilot and a test pilot, I got it back in 1998. Typically, the culture is that you do something stupid and get a good name out of it. And I'm not going to tell you the story, but it is a good name.
All right, maybe over a bourbon sometime, but we'll set it aside. Why now? Obviously, your whole life you have served this country. Why is this the new calling?
That is the exact reason why I'm doing it, because my entire life I've been serving under that oath of support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And frankly, I firmly believe that we are headed in the wrong direction. And if we don't have leaders, not politicians, that are willing to step out and take a risk and wrestle our nation back to where we belong, then we're going to continue to head in a wrong direction, far away from where we deserve to be.
So I hate to tell you this, but we've gotten a memo from leadership of both parties in the Senate. They're very concerned about you. You graduated from MIT. You got a graduate degree at Stanford. You flew F-15s and F-22s. If you were to join the Senate, the intelligence quotient in that chamber would go so high that you would. I mean, how is John Fetterman going to keep up?
Yeah, my concern is that we've got these politicians that are doing the exact opposite in the areas that Americans and Marylanders care about than what leaders should do. On the economy, on education, on public safety and national security, those leaders or so-called leaders you talk about in the House and the Senate are taking us in the wrong direction.
You obviously you're hitting some important issues, the economy being number one of them. And, right now the president's approvals are underwater, particularly when it comes to the economy. Americans are just squeezed right now because of inflation. What is your perspective on how Congress, how Senate, how Congress can actually start to tackle and unravel Biden economics?
Yeah, you're right. Americans are being more than squeezed. It is devastating for the average American to go to the grocery store and look at their bill or the gas pump or consider childcare. And the bottom line is that we need to take a look at what is federal government supposed to do. They need to do it well. And the things that they're not supposed to do, they're supposed to pass off to the states or the people. And too often we are trying to rein in everything at the federal level, when the reality is that we've got to prioritize at that level, like families like mine need to prioritize at our levels.
We're speaking with Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert, who served as the commander of Joint Base Andrews and also as the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force. And clearly, national security and our nation's defense is going to be a big part of the skill set you bring to the table here. Running for the Republican nomination at this time is an interesting challenge because I don't think this is the same. The Republican voters don't necessarily have the same approach to national security that they did during the global war on terror.
Yeah.
I think that the leadership of the party now is very dubious of overseas interventions and the use of military force after our role in Afghanistan for so many years. You hear them talking about, endless wars and that sort of thing. And there's a grave suspicion over our continued involvement with funding the Ukrainian war effort. So given all of that as a big setup, could you sort of unpack where you stand on things like this? And maybe the Ukraine funding is the perfect starting point of this discussion.
Absolutely, Larry. And it is a dangerous world out there, but it becomes more dangerous when we are weak. And the whole reason there is a war in Ukraine is because we were weak in Afghanistan. And we should fear that if we are weak in Ukraine, then it makes it more likely that there is a war in the Western Pacific instigated by China, and they're already emboldened by our weakness. And that weakness comes home to roost as they steal our jobs and steal our technology and threaten our allies and flood our streets with fentanyl that gushes through a porous southern border. Weakness creates adversaries that are emboldened, and we must stand strong on the world stage. Republicans in the Senate, you want to join them, led by Mitch McConnell, have said that we need to keep funding the Ukraine war effort to beat back Putin and Russia, because otherwise their next step will be Poland, which would drag us in because of our NATO obligations. And yet Poland has announced that they will stop funding the military effort in Ukraine. So why should America continue funding this effort if Poland, the country that is in the most direct threat, has pulled out? Larry, I had the benefit of running international affairs for the Air Force and the Space Force in my last job. And this particular issue with Poland is a fight over grain than otherwise a fight over standing strong in Eastern Europe. But I go back to the Western Pacific. China is watching what we do all over the world, and they are looking for the opportunity to seize that opportunity to achieve their ends and unravel this world order that we created at the end of World War II. Our weakness emboldens them, and if we pull out of our support of Ukraine, then it makes it more likely that they make a move in the Western Pacific that drastically harms our interests. So, General Teichert. You know, thinking back with this race that you're up against right now there are about 3 or 4 candidates on the Democratic side who are running here. You've got Angela Also-Brooks from PG County Executive, Montgomery County Council Member Will Gerondo, and the big, donkey in the race, Representative David Trone. He already in Congress. He has heavy, deep pockets, and he is already committed to spending whatever it's going to take. I think he's willing to spend over, $40 million out of his own pocket just to secure this seat. So you're going to be up against, if you're the nominee, you're going to be up against a juggernaut. How can you, what's your strategy to really tackling and taking on why Trone or whomever is on the other side of the ticket, why they're not the right person for the job? Absolutely, Patrice. And first of all, I'd encourage your listeners to follow TeichertForMaryland.com as I take on these juggernauts. But I firmly believe they're going to push each other to the left in the primary, and they're ignoring the needs of the voters. I started my campaign on Monday in Baltimore City. I ended it in Prince George's County, and I'm taking the argument to the voters about education, the economy, public safety, and national security in areas and ways that matter to them, as the left is pushing themselves so far out of touch that they're not going to be able to relate to the voters in Maryland. Most important question, I think, in this whole thing, General. On Saturday, October 21st, Air Force will be in Annapolis, Maryland, to play in the Air Force-Navy football game. I understand you have an allegiance to Air Force, but, of course, the Naval Academy is in Maryland. If you want to be the senator, who are you going to root for? Actually, Larry, this is an easy answer because my wife and I are both ROTC grads. We didn't go to the Air Force Academy. And for the long term, my wife has been a professor in chemistry at the Naval Academy. So we've got this long-term affiliation with Navy. And I hate to say it to your listeners, but go Navy, beat Air Force. There we go. Right. Wow. Look at the things politicians do to get a vote. No, that's not true. I'm kidding. I love the Naval Academy. I love my wife. All right, General, great conversation. Thank you, General. Look forward to more stimulating discussions on these issues as the nomination process moves forward. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Larry and Patrice. It is 7:50.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Brought to you by H.D. Johnson, operated by Rivera & Sons Incorporated.
It is Critter News time, Patrice Onwuka, and we've got an update on the first critter. That would be Commander. Yes, the malicious, bloodthirsty dog of the Bidens, who was brought into the White House as a prop for photo ops, obviously. Joe and now Biden. He's fighting back, or biting back. He's biting back after his 12th known incident at the White House, this time attacking the gardener, a man who's been there for 50 years tending to the roses and the flowers, and he has to deal with this the fangs of this monster hanging off of his arm because Joe Biden is a terrible pet owner. I'm sorry, I don't mean to blame the dog. There are no such thing as bad dogs, just bad dog owners. Peter Doocy asked Karine Jean-Pierre some specifics about this latest attack.
There are some new pictures of Commander Biden biting a staffer again. How many times has that dog bitten the Bidens?
I would refer you to the Secret Service and also the First Lady's office.
Okay.
What is? It's a simple question, and I'll refer you to the Secret Service.
They should know.
Well, because they know the Secret Service isn't going to say anything about it. They're trying to keep this quiet. Well, Commander has been quietly excised now from the White House. Can we just say
they sent him to a farm?
Yeah, again, like Major, the other dog. Can we say no more dogs for the Bidens at this point?
Well, yeah.
Because last time this happened, they brought in another dog, which was Commander, and Commander cannot be trained, won't be trained because there's no one interested in training the dog. They just, how many pictures have we seen of Biden with his aviators, with the dog sitting next to him that they put on social media?
Trying to be like Maverick.
It's a prop for social media. It's bad for the dog. It's bad for the people who work there. But now here's the latest. There is a video that shows President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden stepping down out of Marine One.
Okay.
I'm guessing they're coming back from Camp David or one of their many trips to Delaware, to their beach house in Delaware. And Joe Biden is walking the dog on a leash. Joe Biden cannot control this dog.
Yeah, it's yanking him.
The dog is pulling him all over the place. I mean, like Caesar, the dog whisperer dude, what Caesar, he'd be going nuts right now. Caesar Romero, I think his name was, or he'd be going nuts. He'd be going absolute nuts.
Dog whisperer.
Because this is the owner's fault. You can see that Joe Biden has no idea how to control this dog. And he starts to get tangled up. And then now some people look at this video, and we'll put it out on our social media there so you can see and judge for yourself. We report, you decide. But on the video, you can see that he's getting tangled up in the leash, getting tangled up in this out of control, rampaging, fang-bared dog looking to bite anyone that he can find. And it looks as though Joe Biden, to control the dog, uses his foot.
You mean kicks the dog?
And kicks the dog. It looks like he kicks the dog.
I'm watching it, and it's on a loop. He actually does kick the dog.
He does. He knocks the dog. He knocks the dog
foot.
with his foot, which is by definition a kick. Yeah, and they'll say, well, he didn't mean to kick him. He just got tangled up in it. All right. Bottom line is he shouldn't have the dog. He can't handle the dog. He can barely stay on a bicycle without falling on his face, let alone this.
And he wasn't tangled up in the strap. The strap was on the dog, and he's holding the strap in front of him. Right. So it's not like his leg got tangled in the strap. I just think that the dog is out of control. President Biden wanted a photo op of him walking the dog
and like
down
an
the
angry
steps,
old man, he kicked the dog.
And instead, he kicks the dog.
He kicks his dog.
And listen, I don't like animals.
Right.
But I would not kick an animal. That's
what do you
cruelty.
mean you don't like animals?
I only like the ones on my plate. And I love lots of animals of all types on my plate, but not in my home. That said, I would not go kicking a dog. I think that's actually
Didn't you just
cruel.
go to the zoo, you were telling me?
Yeah, we were at the zoo on Saturday.
What a loathsome afternoon that must have been in your life.
I don't mind them behind cages.
Hey, Mom, let's go to the zoo. Great. I hate animals.
They can be behind cages.
All right.
They can be at other people's
So
house.
you like looking at dogs?
I don't even like looking at them.
Right. Sorry, I got lost. I've never heard anyone literally just say, I hate animals. But all right.
I do.
All right.
But listen, the point is, this is cruel.
This is cruel.
No joke. It
this
actually
whole thing
is
has been cruel.
Get rid of the animals or get rid of the animal owner. Either one.
Well, or both.
Or both.
Why not both?
Or both.
Yeah, I got to say that if this feeble mashed potatoes for brains old man, angry, narcissistic, vile man were kicking me, I might be lashing out and biting people too. And that's obviously what happened with Commander. And let's just be clear that this is so obviously the manifestation of this man's ego and narcissism and the people who surround him who are enabling his behavior, that they said, well, we're going to get rid of Major because he was biting people, so now let's get a new dog because it makes you look cool.
Yeah, or it makes you look like a kind person.
Yeah, kicking a dog.
It makes you humane. No, that's really inhumane.
Listen,
really inhumane.
As I said, we report, you decide.
You can watch
Patrice
the video for
has
yourself.
Decided that this is a full-on kick. The Commander has been kicked.
It's a kick.
You tell us as well what you think as you see the video. We'll put it out there. And the bottom line is these people should not be allowed to have a dog anywhere near them. And let me repeat also, in the District of Columbia, if you are a dog owner and your dog is a repeat offender of biting a human being, like if twice on the second time, that dog is taken away from you. And this guy got away.
They've lost count at the White House of the number of times these dogs have bitten staff.
By the way, according to Byron York and Politico, people inside are saying Biden didn't really want the dog. Oh. Biden's brother James, the guy who's in cahoots with him with all of the $20 million of money that they hide in their underwear.
Yeah, the influence peddling scheme.
Yeah. James gave Commander to the president on his birthday in 21 after Major was sent away. And it caught the White House off guard, according to Politico. A person close to the Biden said the president and first lady initially weren't thrilled to be introducing a new puppy into the chaotic White House life, but they felt like they couldn't turn down a gift from a well-meaning family. So now apparently the plight of Commander is really just the expression of a man's love for his brother.
Can we ask where the dog came from? Like, what if the dog came from China? What if the dog is actually a spy?
It's like from Kazakhstan. It was a gift. It was wired in one of the shell companies.
We don't
obviously.
know, but I'm curious.
It's 7:24.
Making sense of your world.
I can't believe this.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
And I am so with you.
Making sense of the news. Now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36 now, and Patrice Onwuka, it's good to talk with you as always here on O'Connor and Company.
Happy Friday.
Friday to you too. Honestly, I first thought that the most odious story coming out of the National Football League was the obsession with Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah, that's so overplayed.
But then I saw last night's game. At FedEx.
Not overplayed by the Commanders.
Not barely played by the Commanders. Yeah. In fact, let's start on something that's a little bit more fascinating than once again the Commanders falling apart. We turn to Trevor Matich here, and Trevor, let's start with the passing of Dick Butkus, because I'll tell you, growing up in Michigan as a Lions fan, my older brothers would always talk about Dick Butkus as this mythical giant from Chicago. And seeing the highlights of Dick Butkus playing in the NFL in the 60s and the early 70s, honestly, Trevor, it's like that's a different game, what he played back then. The way they hit, the way he hit, and redefined the position of linebacker.
Yeah, the rules were different. Now, because of hits like that, they've made some of those hits illegal in today's game. But I remember watching him as a kid. He scared me. I thought he was a monster. And the one image that I can't get out of my head to this day of Dick Butkus was against the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings running back Chuck Foreman ran up the middle. Somebody grabbed him by the feet, and he was kind of falling forward into Dick Butkus. Butkus grabbed him by the head. So now he's at a 45-degree angle. Butkus has his head, and Butkus then tried to break him in half, to twist his head off his body. And I'm sitting there watching that as a kid, terrified of this man. How would you even run the ball anywhere near this man, right? Now, fortunately, Chuck Foreman was made of rubber, and so he wasn't injured. He went back and ran the next play, Yeah. But this was the way Dick Butkus played, and this is one of the reasons that half the dogs in Chicago to this day are named Butkus.
Yeah, I would think so. And so I got to ask, they announced his passing right before the Bears took the field against the Commanders. And I wonder, because this team that showed up yesterday, was this the Bears playing energized, like, let's win one for Butkus here? Because they were 0-4, and they looked worse than that leading up to yesterday's game. But yesterday, they looked like the 87 Bears. Was it 87 when they ran the table?
85 Bears.
85 Bears. 85. I mean, was this the Bears playing inspired football, or were this the Commanders just falling apart before our eyes?
This was 10% the Bears playing inspired football, and the rest was the Commanders. And it's worse than just 0-4 for the Bears coming into this game. They had not won a game since October of last year.
Yeah.
They were 0-14.
Wow.
Going last year. And in the first half, the Bears, who couldn't move the ball and couldn't score and couldn't stop anybody for the first 4 games of this season, they scored on every drive in the first half. 7 drives. Every drive, the Bears scored a touchdown. And it was in part because the Commanders came out and just busted assignments, missed tackles. It was so lethargic that Magic Johnson, part owner, limited partner of Washington, sent a tweet saying that the Commanders play with no intensity or fire.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson says that about you
publicly.
as a professional athlete.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Well, it was embarrassing, the defensive line, but what about the offensive line? I mean, wasn't the QB sacked? Sam Howell sacked like 5 times. Where was the protection against the QB?
It was better than the stats show. Part of the problem here was that the QB lost his mind
again,
and that's the thing about Sam Howell as a young quarterback in his first year as a starter. He sometimes is decisive and looks great.
Yeah.
Other times he has no idea what he's looking at. And so the Bears would disguise coverage. For example, it would look like they're not going to blitz before the snap.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the snap, they do blitz. And Sam Howell goes, "Oh no, a blitz!" And he freaks out. And he either runs or he runs into a guy that's being blocked over here. We had an interception late in the first half that he had plenty of time to throw, but he threw it the exact wrong time. If he threw it a beat earlier, it's a completion. If he throws it a beat later, it's a completion. But when he threw it, it was an interception. And so the poor guy right now is showing promise, but in between the positive plays are absolute head-scratching bonehead plays, and he's got to grow his way out of that, or he'll grow his way out of a starting job.
So... Gee, give me some silver line. Honestly, I thought this was. I looked at this game as one of the gimmies, Trevor, and so suddenly after a 2-0 start, coming off of an inspiring near win in Philadelphia, where they took the Eagles, one of the best teams in the NFL, to overtime, they just rolled over for the Bears. What's next for this team? They're 0-3 in the last 3 games.
Yeah, they play at the Falcons. The Falcons have a pretty good secondary, hard to throw against. Falcons offense can't throw, but they run the ball pretty well. That plays into Washington's defense strength. But the first thing they need to do, though, is figure out where to stand and who to look at. I mean, the busted coverages in the secondary for Washington against the Bears were epic. I mean, epic. And then the missed tackles were like they weren't even trying to tackle. It was like the receivers, DJ Moore, the receiver for the Bears, had 230 yards of reception yardage. And it was mostly because the defenders of Washington tackled him as if DJ Moore were completely covered with grease. They just slipped right off him, and that was it. Yeah. And it's like DJ Moore looked surprised that he wasn't tackled. He's like, wait a minute, that guy didn't tackle me just now? And so then he started running for the end zone. Yeah. And so what's next, right? Well, what's next is, I think, if these guys don't have a fantastic finish to this season, a guy like Magic Johnson holds a lot of sway with the new ownership group. Mm-hmm. And if he says that these guys aren't playing with intensity, the whole thing is at risk for cleaning house. And I mean, from the head coach down to the last guy on the roster. So they had better pick it up, because right now Magic's not happy.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Ron Rivera is definitely, this is his season to put up or shut up. Hey, real fast, Trevor, because I love your college football commentary, and you do such a great job on ESPN with college football commentary and analysis. You, of course, you're a BYU alum, and your fellow alum, Zach Wilson, who's now grabbed the starting job at the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers' injury, he's getting criticized in a way that I don't remember quarterbacks being criticized. And a lot of people are suggesting that there's almost a bias in some of the commentators' criticisms of Zach Wilson because he's had sort of a privileged life, that because he grew up with a stable household. And you know what I'm saying? I know you've seen some of this analysis. It's the job of being a sports analyst is hard. But why does it always have to sort of breach outside of the basic X's and O's? You know what I mean? Because I don't think they're being fair to your fellow Cougar there.
I will say this without pointing a finger at any particular analyst. Yes. I will say that sometimes an analyst wants to have a strong opinion that makes a splash and gets clicks. And if they don't do it right, and if they're not good at it, then they end up just being mean and petty. So there are things that seem mean but are actually fair.
Right.
But if it's not fair, that's when I get mad about it. And I've heard a bunch of that as well. There was an announcer interviewing a chief last week. The Chiefs just barely beat the Jets last week.
Right.
Trying to get that chief after the game to say that basically Zach Wilson is garbage, and he
Right.
wouldn't do it. He was classy.
Right, he was egging him on. He was like, "Come on, give us some, say something really cruel to Zach Wilson." So why do you have to do that?
All you have to do is say, "Wait a minute, you just said that he had a great game and he's got a good future. Why do you say that? Most people disagree with you."
Right.
Instead, it was like, "Oh no, he's garbage." So these are things that I disagree with as an analyst.
Yes.
Other analysts have a different opinion about it. I respect their opinion, but I disagree.
This is why we like Trevor Matich, because you do it the right way. And by the way, and when you want to be a little soundbitey, you do. I mean, let's not forget it was Trevor Matich who properly coined the Washington Redskins the Kardashians of the NFL. Ooh. And that will go. That'll be in your obituary, Trevor. That was one of your greatest lines, and you said it right here on WMAO.
And it was fair.
And it was fair. All right, Trevor. Take care. Thank you. Thanks for your gentlemanly and respectful analysis always. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
7:45.
Miss anything? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Get today's breaking news on the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on WMAL.
Patrice Onwuka, we're in the middle of this Republican primary process, which for many people, it's already sort of baked in the cake. The polls are certainly showing in the key states that Donald Trump has a insurmountable lead.
Yeah.
There are also a lot of voters who are hoping that Governor DeSantis actually
finds a way to do a Hail Mary.
Well, yeah, and I've talked to people who support Governor DeSantis saying they wish he would be more forceful in making the case as to why he should be the nominee. Well, here's a little soundbite from yesterday that may be the beginning of that.
Okay.
A voter that goes to 10 rallies, their vote counts the same as somebody that's unenthusiastic and then goes and votes. And we just have to understand that. And people will act like 2020, they're like, Biden was such a disaster. But here's the thing. I don't think anybody voted for Biden, okay? They were voting against Trump. That was why they did it. I mean, let's just be honest. He energized Democrats. You could have John Kennedy walk through the door right now, and he wouldn't energize Democrats.
So what do you think of that approach? I mean, he does need to make the case. It's like setting policies aside, and I'm going to do the same policies that Trump did.
Yeah.
But the difference is I can win because there are too many people who won't vote for Trump no matter what. Is that an effective message, you think, or is it too little too late at this point?
It's kind of late. I still think most people understand that. Most people do understand that there are a lot of people who just don't want to vote for Trump, and some of them voted for Biden. But they're going to sit it out. That still doesn't necessarily hurt. That would hurt Biden next year, because they really weren't enthusiastic to begin with to vote for him. And now seeing his Bidenomics in place, they have no reason to pull the lever for him. But they're not necessarily going to go to vote for Trump.
Well, that's why I think it helps.
You need just a depressed vote to help Trump. That's all you really need.
That's why I think
depressed vote.
I think RFK Jr. actually helps Trump, because those people who voted for Biden last time and don't want to vote for him again and won't vote for Trump, they'll vote for RFK. That's a vote taken away from Biden, I think. But I think, sadly, when you said everybody knows that, I think there are some people out there who don't know how motivated the anti-Trump vote is.
Yeah.
How there are people who will vote only for a chance to vote against Donald Trump. That is a fact.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a downer.
No, it's
I'm
true.
trying to be real.
It's true.
And when you lay that out for people, because I know it's a fact, and they will. And when you'll say, "Well, look at these states. Look at how these voters voted this time," and they'll just say, "Well, it was rigged." It's like, okay, I'm telling you, there are people who probably won't even vote next year.
Exactly.
Except if Trump is on the ballot, they will, and they'll vote for some. Now, hopefully, they'll vote for RFK, and they won't vote for Biden. That, I think, is a good solution. But this is interesting that DeSantis has decided now to do this.
Well, and you heard fire coming out of him, which I think a lot of people have been waiting to see.
Yeah. 7:54.